tuning in to the Val and Val Show, where conversation is art. Conversation is art. Conversation is art. You should chime in. Ain't no telling what to spark on the Val and Val Show. Ain't no telling the Val and Val Show. You know, ain't no telling where we go on the Val and Val Show. Ain't no ceiling, cause the art of conversation is the flow. It's that creativity available when we speak, available in our homes, available in the streets. We just trying to get it sparking and take it a little deeper. Keep it casual while fireside chatting with our people. Yeah, we take it a little deeper. It get hot when we fireside chatting with our people. Cause conversation is art. Conversation is art. You should chime in. Ain't no telling what'll spark on the Val and Val. The Val and Val Show. The Val and Val Show.
Well, hello there. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Val and Val Show. And our favorite fan is always on. Hey, Eleanor, how you doing? Thanks for being, as always, the first in the room. So look, I'm just gonna tell y'all. This is gonna go however it go. It's gonna go however it go. Let me put my disclaimer out here first. I am apolitical. I would never be loyal to a party, okay? I've never been a groupie. I was born and raised that way, so I ain't finna change now. I judge people by the content of their character, and I wish that we didn't even have parties that you put the names on the ballots and then we could decide who we wanted to choose. So with that being said, tonight's show is to educate you all, hopefully, and make you become readers. You know, I had a former pastor, Pastor Chappelle, used to say, hey, if you don't want folks to know something, put it in writing. They would definitely not be aware of it. So look, we're going to get right down to it. So welcome, everyone. We thank you all for joining us. Look, I got a Birmingham, look, I'm going to call her Birmingham Skeegee lady, because really, my guess, y'all, she shocked me when she moved to Tuskegee. That just blew my mind. I was like, huh? Really? But look, I'm going to jump right into it. We have tonight a phenomenal young woman. She come from a line of dynamic women and males, but particularly women. They are fighters, they are activists, they are advocates, they are taken to the street, the whole 9 yards. I have Miss Tiffany Johnson Cole. She is an attorney with the law offices of Robert Sims Thompson PC in Tuskegee. And she does a whole lot of things. I'm going to let her tell you all that. You know, I feel like she's the best person to tell you about that. But guess what? She's a graduate of Spelman College, got her psychology degree. You know, so when y'all come at her, you know, trying to talk crazy, she already can analyze you. So don't try it. She got a psychology degree, okay? And her Juris Doctorate from Cumberland School of Law at Sanford. She's licensed to practice in Alabama and Georgia. So if you're in Georgia, you can look her up too. And as well as in Alabama. Tiffany is involved in everything, you all. She's with the Links, Jack and Jill, Georgia Bar Association, the Alabama Bar Association, the Alabama Association of Justice, etc. Plus, she have children that have her really, really busy. She's married to Jermaine, and they just live in the country life. I'm talking about real country life, y'all. Horses and all down there in Tuskegee, okay? So come on in, Miss Tiffany.
I'm tickled at that description, but I got a disclaimer too. I'm here today as Tiffany, just Tiffany, nothing else. So what it's gonna go however it goes. But understand that as I show up today, all of those titles, all of those positions, all of those jobs, all of those organizations, they ain't got nothing to do with what we talking about. I'm here as Tiffany Johnson Cole, and I'm like you. You know, I'm not loyal to anybody. I'm probably the only thing I'm loyal to is policy.
Yeah.
Because the policy is what really impacts us at the end of the day. And I look, I get to the city every now and then. Moving to Tuskegee shocked me too.
Look, we couldn't believe that. We still trying to get over that. We're like, Tiffany doing what?
Me too. Me too.
Well, look, you blended in well, honey. You all the way country, but I ain't gonna talk because I'm a country girl. I had to go down to the peaceful quiet woodlands for 5 days. Ain't nothing like y'all just having that peace, that quiet, no sirens, none of that in
Mm.
Atmore. At least
Well,
not in the part where we live.
we got sirens and stuff. We ain't that we ain't, we have not missed that part of it.
Well, you know what? You're actually too close to Montgomery. Okay. So in the little community where we live, it's just like only homes on it. So we're kind of sheltered. So thank God for
Yeah.
that. So look, Tiffany. So I reached out to you to have this particular conversation. First, I know you're a balanced person. I didn't want those people that's way left, way right. You know what I'm saying? She having a flash,
Right?
y'all. She fan.
I am. Look, I'm gonna be 50 in January, and these hot flashes is something new, and they just come when they come.
Hey, I feel you. I'm past that almost. Almost. I don't have them as often. So look, tell the people what's been going on in your life and what you've been doing. Give us a little background.
Uh, working, and trying to protect my peace in this chaotic world. So I practice law most days, and then of course I'm a Uber driver because I've got these kids who do soccer and dance, and my 14 year old now has a social calendar, so I'm constantly transporting. But the big thing, just trying to navigate how fast life is coming
Yeah.
and how so many things are happening so fast, and really protecting our peace, because up until Sunday, it was getting really heavy, and I
Yeah.
can tell you I had pretty much checked out a lot. I was down to watching Netflix and Prime, and you know give me there's a series on Netflix where about these kids who own horses and stuff, and real low drama, just easy going. Give me anything, because the world, things that were going on, and things that are happening still, it's just
Yeah.
it's too much. It is really, it's too much. And so, to all of everybody who's listening, the first thing I really want to say is know when to check out and protect your peace, because that's important, because the stuff that we're going to talk about, it's heavy, and it
Yeah.
impacts people, real people, in a real life way, and it can become overwhelming. And so it's really important that in this day and age that we know when it's time to say, you know what, I gotta check out and take a breath, and do something different for a little bit until I check back in. Hey, V.
Yeah.
I'm
Hey,
sorry. I
y'all,
see.
look.
I see my girl in the chat. I wasn't gonna share the link because I'm like, yeah.
Why you ain't share the link?
I did share it. I put it on my
Oh,
page, but I always
okay.
get paranoid when people are listening to me and watching me. But they, they my people, so I'm like, I really got to share it with my people.
Y'all don't believe that, okay? But look, okay. So going back to what you said, y'all heard the psychology major coming out of her, right? Protect your peace. Y'all, let me tell you something. I started this probably 10 years ago. I do not listen to the news at night. They have actually done studies that show people don't sleep as well. You may think you're resting, but you're actually not. So I try not to have all that in my spirit at night. And then I cut off probably about 3. And some days it'd be like, no, I can't do none of this today. I just have to be in a state of prayer and meditation. And let me tell this, y'all, we're both believers. So if you don't want no scripture quoted, you need to log off now. You want to hear about Jesus, log off now. And we talking about true Christianity, not the watered down version that this country supposedly was established on, but it wasn't. So that's a lie I want us to stop telling too. This has never been a
Mhm.
Christian nation. It's been false religion, true. So it has not. So you definitely got to protect your peace. You all, especially this past week, and I'm gonna bring up the assassination attempt, whether you think it was real or not. Y'all, when that happened, I thank God more than ever that Donald Trump did not get shot. Do you all
Man.
know what would have happened if you don't think God intervened for that reason? Okay. And I'm gonna say this. You go read the Bible, y'all keep acting up. I ain't talking about, I'm talking about when I say acting up, that's all of us. You get some hard kings, some presidents and stuff. So we do know it was so much happening Sunday. I was like, I can't track this stuff. I was Googling, like, am I reading right? Is this right? And then, of course, I'm just going to say this. Some of y'all might not like it, but look, I've been a nurse for 34 years, okay? President Biden did not just start showing mental decline, okay? We just got to keep it real. Denial does not make it not be true, okay, y'all? I worked at ER for 14 years, okay? My parents, when they started slowing down a little bit, you cannot deny this stuff, because guess what happened when you deny? You get a call one day, they don't got in the car and drove across the country, and you was like, well, I did notice there was a lift for gift, but guess what? It's too late when they drove across country, and you may not know where they are. So we got to learn when to pass the baton, okay, without being forced. It's okay. The Bible even says the older people, we're here for our wisdom and support. Get past it to the young folks. So now, moving forward, we know we got Vice President Kamala Harris, who's been seems like she's gonna be what is it? Approved. What do you call it, honey?
The presumptive nominee.
Yeah,
But
she will be.
before
She
you
will
go
be.
to that, let me just say this, because I'm gonna push back on that mental decline.
Uh-huh.
Because I will say, in watching the debate, his delivery was off, but he is 80 something years old. But I also think his responses, his ability to check out what has happened and what he's done, I think that's there. And so I think we have to give him credit where credit is due. Now, I will say, watching him move and come and go gave me pause.
Yeah.
But but he is 80 something years old. And the thing about it, I'll say this, it is amazing how all of this has lined up, right?
Yeah.
Because the reality of it is had he not stepped down, had he stepped down way back when and we had an open primary, I don't think she would have come out on top, right?
Yeah.
And so the way all of this has transpired has been amazing. And somebody was telling me Sunday was the anniversary or the day that the Barbie movie came out, right?
Uh-huh.
What was the Barbie movie about? Strong women and women
Mm-hmm.
taking over. The inauguration in 2025 is on MLK Day. It's like all of these things are kind of lining up. And so to his credit, and we got to also give credit to the Democrats that they have fallen in line, because the reality of it is usually they are agreeing on the overall topic. I tell people, like, Democrats will agree, okay, we're going to wear pants to the party, right?
Uh-huh.
Everybody going to wear pants. But then the breakdown comes in with, I'm going to wear shorts. No, we're going to wear red pants. No, we're going to wear blue pants.
Trying to
we need to wear
decide.
capris. No, we're going to wear flare legs. So for the party to come in and throw their support and the energy and the momentum, it has been really amazing to watch. And I keep reminding my kids that you all are in the middle of history. No matter what happens, they are really
Yeah.
in the middle of all of it, not just her being the presumptive nominee or the assassination attempt on Trump, but just the breakdown and the challenges that we're seeing in the pushback against democracy. Like,
Yeah.
all of that is history making. And if we can get on the other side of this, I tell them 10 years from now, 20 years from now, your kids are going to be asking you, where were you when this happened?
Yeah, and
Where
what
were
did
you
you
when
what,
this
what did you
happened?
do? Did you say anything, or did you just sit back quietly?
Exactly.
But yeah,
Exactly.
now
So
Tiffany,
we
I'm
are
not taking.
in.
I wasn't taking anything from President Biden. It's just that the problem we have definitely in these United States of America, people have an issue with stepping aside. You don't need to be in a position where you are forced to do it. It's better when you can actually transition somebody and also train somebody. I will say this based on what you just said. What the Democrats learned was from 2016, because as a whole, those Republicans back then, they didn't really want Donald Trump to be the nominee, but because they knew it was going to work for them, they got behind him. Now, I grew up and I'm still like this. My mom told me, she said, Val, if I'm doing wrong, you don't need to support
Absolutely.
me. And that's just how I roll. Okay. So if y'all out there, like I tell folks when they say, Val, can I use you as a reference? If you lazy and trifling, no. Because if they call me, I'm gonna tell the truth. I'm gonna tell the truth.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I'm not gonna vouch for you. So I applaud him, but I've already figured this out, Tiffany. We don't get into what we're gonna talk about. 35 is the minimum right age that you can run for president. 65 need to be the max. If you get to stay in 8, you're 73, go play with your children. Go to home on the range.
Go
Go
play.
listen, go and sit in the office and tell the young folks, come back here and let me teach you the law or these rules and how to navigate this.
But
I've already fixed it.
power concedes nothing.
Oh, not well, most of the
Nothing.
people in politics are narcissistic and
Power
think they're in
concedes
power.
nothing.
Yeah, so look. But anyway, so Project 2025. So you all, I'm gonna be dropping a lot of stuff in this chat. You need to read, okay? You need to read. Now the 902 page Project 25. You ain't got to read all that. You can Google some keywords, but I'm going to put some videos and some short synopsis for y'all too, okay? So, how much of it have you read, or have you read it, or you just been getting the cliff notes like
So,
me?
so I've been reading bits and pieces of it, and one of the things when somebody posts something that really sparks my interest, like I will go and try to find those little paragraphs. But I'm going to tell you one of the things that I have done that I would bet most people have not done, because we're focused on the 900 and what is it, 2 pages,
Yeah.
20 pages. We're focused on that and what's in it. But one of the things that I have done is like even taking a look at just the other parts of it. Like there's
Yeah.
a training piece. There's a whole training piece, and but for the fact that I'm sure they wouldn't allow me to attend. I'm really curious as to what that training looks like.
Yeah.
There's a academy that you can go to if you're interested in jobs in the conservative administrations. So there's so much. I mean, it's a wealth of information.
Yeah. I don't know. The one I got with copy of was the mandate for leaders.
Right. So if you go so if you go on to the landing page, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a drop down for about Project 2025. Then it has the presidential personnel database. So if you're
Okay.
interested in a position, you can go in and fill out the information so that you can be considered. Then there's a presidential administration academy where you can
Okay.
go in and do these trainings. And I tell people it's interesting. Somehow when I came out of law school, I wound up on a GOP mailing list, and they would have these conferences about talking points of the party. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, I can be a little radical, so I would mark it up and return it to sender and all of those things. Hindsight, my 49-year-old self now wishes I had taken the time to have gone to some just to hear and listen, because
Yeah.
one thing you got to give them credit for is that they have a game plan, and that's basically what this is. And so then they've got a 180-day playbook, right? And so the
Yeah.
180-day playbook is what they're going to do in the first 180 days. However, it's not online.
Oh, okay.
That's not
Wonderful.
online. And then of course you got the 902 pages. But again, I was just really interested, and I found it interesting that they're creating this database for potential employees, because one of the things that it talks about is the importance of having people who are ready day one to implement this agenda, right? And
Yeah.
so they've got a database, and they've got a training space for you to go in and learn, I guess, whatever it is you need to learn to
That
move
you can do.
forward, move their agenda forward. So even beyond just the document, which is full of things, and I have to say this too, the document is very well written. Like there are places in it where I'm reading and I'm thinking, this isn't too bad if you don't know the buzzwords and the code
Yeah.
words. You know what I'm saying? Like if you aren't familiar with what some of this language really means
Me.
and who it's gonna impact, just on its face, it's like, oh well, yeah, I would love for you to, be tough on violent crime. Problem is that violent crime overall is going down. Now,
Yeah.
granted, that statistics does nothing to somebody whose neighborhood was shot up last night, right?
Yeah. True.
But that is a reality, okay? It is trending downward.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but if that's my reality, then of course I'm like, oh yeah, that's good. Well, what happens when they crack down on violent crime? It results in mass incarceration of black and brown people, right?
Yeah. The
And
same
so
way the
if
war on drugs.
right,
It's the language that they did in war on drugs when they made cocaine be less
right,
severe than crack.
right. And
So
so and so if you don't know the lingo, then you don't think the document is that bad. Like there are places where it's really take the Department of Education piece. Like I'm a Head Start graduate, right? So I'm diehard
me too.
Head Start. I believe Head Start is the best thing since sliced bread. Any negative statistic you find about Head Start, I believe it happened as a result of whatever happened once they got to school. Like I believe the majority of Head Start kids leave a quality Head Start program ready for kindergarten.
Oh yeah,
I also believe that
I could read fluently when I
right,
left Head Start.
right. But if you look at the statistics that they cite in the Department of Education piece where it talks about eliminating Head Start, you would think Head Start was a complete and utter failure.
Yeah.
And so we got to be really careful about not just knowing what the document says, but being educated on one who's writing it. Because that's
Yes.
another thing I think is important when you look at some of these authors, knowing who they are and what they stand for, but also being able to kind of weed through the language that has multiple meanings, depending on what side of depending on what your perspective looks like.
Yeah. I sent you some stuff earlier, and I dropped it in here too. I laughed. One of the videos I found about a lawyer that was breaking down Project 2025, and his YouTube page is Defiant Lawyers. You probably would befriend them when you're real good.
Probably.
But that's what he does. So he goes on the breakdown and he brings in some of the things like the war on drugs and those buzzwords where
Hmm.
but you all, let me bring this to y'all attention. And if you are sitting up here shocked, oh my God, I can't believe we're here. You all, they just got bold enough to put it in writing, okay? Project 25 started immediately post the civil rights.
So this is the thing. They've been doing this every 4 years.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like they've had one, and they said I think in 2016, like 60 something percent of the mandates in it were put in place. I think
Yeah.
Reagan, he put in a number of the initiatives. So it's definitely not new, which also begs the question, why doesn't the other side have a counter to it?
That's the thing.
Or a
It's
plan of
it's
their
like it's
own, not
like
necessarily a counter, but a plan of their
playing
own.
for it. Yeah, if you know it exists. And it goes back to those that are your elected officials, letting the constituents know, hey, this is going on, so that we as a people can say, if you don't address this, even if you don't have the power to do anything about it, if you're not going to inform us, we're going to vote you out next time.
Mhm.
This blind loyalty, let me tell y'all stop taking them fish sandwiches and a soda when it come time for voting. Okay, come on.
We cheap. We
I
we be
mean,
bought real
no,
cheap.
because I thought about this when I was reading some of this. I was like, if you go back to social security, when your spouse died, you could get both, right?
Mhm.
Then Ronald Reagan stopped that. You all listen. Every time, first, we black people, I'm talking about we black people, when we get to a point to qualify for something
They
that
take
was designated for them, the rules change, and it lets you know how bad they don't want you to have it. They are willing to take it from themselves, but only because they have an advantage in that they've acquired generational wealth.
Mhm.
So they are more able to say, oh, I don't need that little rinky dink other social security check. Whereas many black people, they, when their spouse died and they lost their income, it threw them into abject poverty. I
Or
can speak for me.
they'll also go without to keep us from
Oh yeah,
having.
they'll eat beans. They'll eat beans and rice. We'll be talking about I work too hard. I ain't be struggling like that. Y'all, at some point we gotta decide how important is it for us to make some sacrifice. I'm talking about some true
Mhm.
sacrifices, some pain sacrifices. The I ain't gonna spend my money in this economy sacrifice. I'm gonna drive this car until they tell me, uh, Miss Jones, you got to buy another car because we ain't even making these parts no more. To prove a
Mhm.
point, because y'all, economically, we are powerful.
Yeah,
Even poor, we're powerful
collectively, we
because,
absolutely are.
yeah, because even the poorest of the poor, they wearing Jordans, they wearing Nikes. And I know we say we want people to have it, but y'all, at some point, we got to come together and say, look, this is our stand. What is it? Well, who was it made the stand? Was it Custard or whatever it was? We gonna make this
Mhm.
stand. We ain't backing down. We ain't doing Black Friday. We ain't doing it. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, you
even
know,
if we gotta stop traveling.
I tell people, when you look at the Montgomery bus boycott with
Yes.
300 and what 70 some days, 300 over a
Yes.
year, I am so grateful that that happened when it did, because honestly, I don't know that I could trust y'all to stay off the bus for 2 weeks.
That's what I told somebody.
You
I
know,
said, y'all, if this mentality we have now was dependent on us getting something, we wouldn't make it. But the part of that coin is Tiffany. And people get mad at me. I say, you all, and I always say the baby boomers. The baby boomers to me raised the worst generation ever, simply because they did get a gain because they were able to get the factory jobs, make more money. And rather than teaching their children those core things we had, you had to work, you had to do chores. I knew some people like, you gotta, not even a teenager, in the country, we learned how to mow views on your tiptoes, pushing that mow, male or female. There was no gender bias either.
mm-mm,
But it
mm-mm.
was like, well, I don't want them in that hot sun. Baby, you better get some water and get you a sweat rag, as my daddy said. So we went to the other extreme
Yeah,
of not teaching just core work values. And now we're mad at what we're reaping.
hmm,
And sadly, we can't talk about Project 2025 without talking about the internalized oppression
yeah,
that we have, that really the oppressor is kind of doing another thing, and we are doing those things within our own communities. I
yeah.
mean, I remember Black people might have been poor, baby, but when you went to them shotgun houses, you could eat off the floor.
Right, right.
I mean, they were clean, they were decorated, and everything. Now we're destroying our neighborhoods
Yeah.
that we've been
Well,
left, where we could have capitalized and kept them up to a good, standing. I beat myself up. Let me confess. I defected from Birmingham, not because I didn't like my neighborhood. The school system drove me to the edge.
yeah,
And as Tiffany said, I was 30 something years old and was like, you know what? I ain't got to deal with this poor school system. I can just move. Now, that's the one thing, if I could roll back the hands of time, I would have ran for the Board of Education
right,
or
right,
something.
right.
But the ignorance I had was that we kind of had a trusted thing that the people we elected were going to do what was right.
Hmm.
So that has been my thing. Look, my friend Elton said it, rake the yard. Girl, don't talk about raking them yards. Woo, them
All of
leaves.
that.
We had 12
You
pecan trees. Jesus, I'm having a
when
PTS moment,
when
PTSD
you talk
moment.
about what we do to our communities, I know at Spelman we read a book called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And
Mm,
one of the things it talks about is basically what oppressed people do. And they
yeah,
typically turn, they rarely turn against the oppressor. They typically turn against themselves. And I think that's a lot of what you're seeing in our communities now is just what happens to a people who have been oppressed.
yeah.
And unfortunately, I think in a lot of ways we know what works, right? Like we know what
Mm-hmm.
best practices are out there. There's studies that talk about criminal justice reform. There's studies that talk about mass incarceration doesn't work. There's studies that talk about the best ways to educate children. I mean, when you look at the Ron Clark Academy, you look at the Harlem Children's Zone, like there's some folk out there doing good
Mm-hmm.
things and it's producing good results. Unfortunately, though, we're not really interested in best practices. We're interested in rhetoric and things that, when we hear it, it makes us feel good. And that's where we land. And we continue to get the same things. Mayor Langford used to always say, if you always do what you always done, you're gonna always get what you always got.
And
And that's
true, and that's
and I
it.
mean, and that's what we're doing. We keep doing the same things.
Yeah, going back to what you said, one of the big things is literacy.
Hmm.
That's proven, that's been tied to the pipeline to prison. have a young lady here named Devin Frazier. She has a program called I See Me Inc.
I
She's
know Devin.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Her
Fairfield.
mother and her aunts are from Atmore.
Right.
And I want to have her aunt on the show because she's the first Black graduate of UA/UAB School of Nursing. And with all of this going on, just to get her perspective, because since Alabama and the world is trying to go anti-DEI, what if she had not been allowed
Right.
to go
Right.
to
And you know,
school?
you talk about illiteracy, and that comes right on back to Project 2020 2025, where they're talking about eliminating the Department of Education, getting rid of Head Start, moving
Yeah.
more towards school choice. And I tell people I'm always on the fence on school choice because I believe everybody should have access to a quality education, right? And I feel
Mhm.
like, you know, when you've got young kids and they're in a system and they're trying and the system is not providing what they need, you want an immediate answer for
Yeah.
that child. You know what I'm saying? For your
Like
kids,
I did.
you want an immediate answer, right? You want to be able to say, I'm gonna take my kids here, and you know, I'm not. And I tell people, my kids, you know, I'm not sacrificing my kids' education for nobody.
Yeah.
Um, you know, so on one hand, it's like I understand the school choice, but on the other hand, it's like, why can't we just fix all schools? Like, why can't we figure out, follow those best practices and do what we need to do so that all of our kids get a quality education? Because if
Education.
I'm not mistaken, that is still, children are old, everybody's old, a right to a fundamental, you know, to a quality education.
Education. Well,
Um,
Tiffany, that was my issue with Birmingham, because they had it wasn't the charter schools, but the Princeton and Epic
mhm. I
schools.
remember Epic.
Yeah, my thing was this: why are we settling that we're going to have lower performing schools, but we can also invest money and have these higher performing schools that kids can go to?
Right.
Okay, when I moved to Hoover didn't have no expectation of, just because this school is over here and more Black people may be in it, we wanted to fail. Their thing was, no, we want all of our schools to excel. Even when the Hispanics were out here greatly, they went and hired extra staff. They got tutoring and everything, because their expectation is that if it's one school failing greatly in our system, then it's a
All
reflection
of
as a
them.
whole. And that's what I don't like about Birmingham school system. You got Ramsey.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot the school downtown now that hadn't been open.
Alabama School of Fine Arts.
Not the School of Fine Arts. They opened up one of the other. It's another school similar to Ramsey. It's a middle school. I can't think
Mm-hmm.
of the name of it now. But why not have the expectation that all of our schools are going to perform at the highest level,
Mm-hmm.
WJ Christian, and demand that? And if you have administrators that are not willing to uphold that, then you get rid of them.
Then they got to go. Yeah.
You get rid of them, and you hire people. Going back to what you said about Ron Clark. Ron Clark proved that when he did that many years ago, that no, these kids can learn.
And his school is amazing. I don't know if you follow him on social media, but I
Oh
think his
yes,
school is like the most amazing thing since sliced bread. And then, like I said, you got the Harlem Children's Zone too. They're doing
yes,
amazing things. And
amazing
so,
job.
you know, there are models out there that show us how to do this stuff, right? We just got to be willing to say, you know what we're doing is not working. Let's do something different.
Okay. Eleanor said Sarah was one of the blacks at UAT during boycott of black students.
Okay.
So, and I, you can, and we don't even know half of what she went through emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
mentally,
Right.
but she came from Freemanville, Alabama, so she
She ready.
hey, she went through. As a result, her two sisters, Eleanor is a retired nurse anesthetist, and her sister Cynthia retired from VA after many years being in the senior leadership of
Mm-hmm.
nursing. But I guess for me, looking at Project 2025, yes, okay, you have it. That's their plan, and some of it's been being implemented.
Mm-hmm.
The other part of it is, we need to address it and speak out against it. But at the same time, we've got to implement something within our communities. And I call out the churches, especially our mega churches. To me, if you've had a church within a community at least 10 years, and that community hadn't shown some type of growth and improvement, it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I feel collectively, and I'm speaking here in Birmingham particularly, if these pastors would put down their egos and desires to be, get the glory, and would partner with, like you said, Tiffany, there are many community organizations out there, grassroots, already doing this stuff. Partner with them, open up these beautiful edifices
Mm-hmm.
to the community where kids can come in safely and
Mm-hmm.
study and get tutoring and
And
learn
mental health services, because
mental
I
health
tell people
services.
the
Yes.
trauma that our kids are experiencing is, I think that's another thing. I think we're seeing that too. I
Yeah.
think we're seeing centuries of trauma that's been encoded, because there's studies that say trauma encodes on your DNA,
Oh
right?
yeah. They
I
they got
didn't believe,
testing for it now.
but and you know what? I didn't believe that until I had a very traumatic experience with the dentist, right?
Uh-huh.
When I had my son, I was like, we read the Bernstein Bears, we all the good things about the dentist. The dentist is great. We pull up at the dentist and literally he loses his mind. Like he starts screaming. Never been to the dentist, knows nothing about the dentist. And I said, you know what? There is something to this idea that trauma is passed down, because he had, I mean, up until he was probably about 9, 10 years old, it was a fight,
To
and
do it.
I have no, other than the fact that I had horrible experiences with the dentist. But I say that to say that when you look at our kids growing up in neighborhoods where they learn at a very early age that if there's a shooting, they have to get down on the floor. In
Yes.
Fairfield, my little cousin be like, okay, when the gunshot, we drop down to the floor. No 7, 8-year-old should have to know that, right? And at some point, all of that is it manifest itself in ways. So our kids need to also not just be getting the tutoring services, the nutrition education and access
Yeah.
to quality food, but also access to healthy ways to deal with what it is they're feeling. And just even in this world, the idea that, you know, what is it? You sent me the DEI bill that was passed in Alabama,
Yes.
where you can't teach divisive concepts. Well, they consider divisive concepts history, basically.
Yeah.
Race, gender, inferiority, superiority, that all of that falls into history. And so they're growing up in a space where a lot of who they are and what their ancestors dealt with is they're being marginalized again. So, and they have no voice or no words to put to what that feels like and what they're going through. And so you're absolutely right. If the churches were to open up their door and to deal with some of this stuff, the churches should be dealing with some of this policy stuff.
Yeah.
There was a
Speaking
time
out.
when the Black church was like the pivotal place, you know, for movement, for education, for the upliftment. And we have absolutely gotten away from that. And we
Well,
need to
one of the
return
things,
to it.
Tiffany, Jesus fought for this. If Jesus was walking in the earth realm now, he would be speaking out against this. And I actually printed this off and highlighted the anti-DEI bill. And
Mm-hmm.
this is one of the things that jumped out at me. It was like, you cannot describe, look, traits such as hard work ethics are racist or sexist. Now, I was thinking, I've never heard anybody refer to hard work being racist or
Or
sexist.
sexist. Mm-hmm.
So this is really getting down, being very nitpicky. And then the other one's that the fault, blame, or bias should be assigned to members of a race, color, religion, based on, and they should have guilt about it. My pastor says this: it might not have been your fault, but it should be your fight, because you benefited from things that were stolen from the Native Americans
But
and the
they
Black
taught
people.
us for years, and in fact, not just years. A couple of years ago, I had to have a conversation with my daughter because a book she was reading in the second grade, third grade, said that Native Americans were savages. So she's like,
Yeah,
"Mama, so are they saying my ancestors were savages?" And I'm like, "No, no, 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 no." And so, and I told the teacher, I'm like, "So, we've had a conversation about this. So when she
yeah,
comes to school, I want you to be aware of where she's getting her perspective from. And I'm not telling you not to read the book. Like, I don't believe in banning books. I don't believe in any of that. But I wanted her to understand that this is not true, right? Like, this is,
yeah.
Native Americans were not savages. That is a watered down version of history. That to me is indoctrination, right? That's the
Yeah.
very epitome of indoctrination. But it amazes me that it was okay for decades, for centuries, for us to potentially feel guilt about our ancestors being savages, which was not true. But
Yeah.
now nobody else should feel guilty when their ancestors hung and lynched and brutally beat and raped people for the 400 plus years of slavery, followed by Jim Crow.
And
You
you were,
know,
and you're a Christian nation. I asked somebody, what Bible were you reading? Just the other day, talking to a gentleman, a white Jewish gentleman. And I say white Jewish because if y'all, I went and pulled all the censuses that's been on document, that's on file, because I wanted to see how did race kind of escalate and who could be what, on the census. And what made me do it was the last census when I looked at something under the white category, and I was like, they can be white now. And that's what made me go back, because I'm a researcher and I'm a reader. So, going to nursing school was good for me because I grew up reading and researching. That was how my mom raised me. So I was like, wait a minute. They almost as brown as I am. That's what I was thinking in my mind. So I went back and I was like, oh, that wasn't on the last census. And then, of course, when you got further back, it was
mhm,
just black, white, and I think Asian was on there. But
mhm,
what I did notice, there's been no additions to who could be considered black. It's still,
mhm,
all of those same things. So as I go back to say, every time we get a game, the rules change. So to
mhm,
maintain the majority of the white race, they say, okay, they pretty safe. We can add them to our count. But I
mhm.
had my coworker made a good instance. He made a good point. He said, Valerie, in a minute ain't gonna matter. He said, cause everybody gonna be interracial in a minute. So what are you gonna do when you have all these interracial folks and you say you gotta choose, which
Which
parent
one? Hmm. Well,
that you're gonna be
time
loyal to.
predicted that.
But I had this is an older white gentleman. He said, well, you know what, Valerie? Why do you think all of it had to be evil, slavery, right? I mean, how come it could not be a white gentleman showed up? And this is when I said, he really think this is okay. But I
Mhm.
thank God, y'all. I've been praying and seeking to be more like Jesus and submitting to the Holy Spirit because just a few moments ago, this interaction would have went a whole
Would have
nother
went
way.
a whole
You know,
different
way.
direction.
And he goes and he says, you see this big brute black guy in the center of the town, and you're a Christian, and you're like, I'm gonna take him home and I'm gonna teach him the word of God. And I'm going, wait, I said, stop. I said, let me tell you something right now. I said, don't you use that with no other black person.
Cause
After
yeah,
me and you get
cause
through having this
that's not how
conversation,
it that ain't how it went.
I said slavery was inherently evil.
Hmm.
You had a few. I said, but let me ask you this. When he walked in town and saw the big brute black man, why didn't he go and teach him and give him a tray and set him free?
Hmm.
If the concern, I said, see how you're trying to make like, okay, everybody was not like that, but it was enough that were and enough that were
But this is
complicit
the
in the
thing.
silence.
No matter how, no matter what end of that spectrum of violence a slave owner may have fallen on, like you said, owning other people
Yes.
is evil. No matter how nice you were to them, no matter how much you smiled and grinned and what you taught them, owning them was wrong. And there's no way to make that right.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
It,
Like there's just no way for you to make it
yeah.
okay
Well,
for
even
people.
Jesus,
Right.
they translated slave, but it was servants. They were treated like family members. As a
Hmm.
fact, if they died without children, their servants inherited everything. So this narrative of that, oh, it was okay. And then it was one of those I was reading, Tiff. I think it was it in Project 20. They were talking about no, hold on, y'all. Let me put this book up. White Rage. They were actually saying, oh, but we brought them from Africa, and as a result of bringing them to Africa, they were able to grow into over 40 million people. Had you left them in Africa, they would have grew into 40 million
But you
people.
so in a lot of ways though, it was bringing us that saved this country. And I didn't know this until last year. We went
Yeah.
on a tour in Charleston,
Uh-huh.
and the tour guide was telling us that when they brought the slaves to the low country, it was the
Hmm.
slaves who taught them what to do in the swamps and how to grow and
Yes.
make that land profitable because they had no idea. So in a lot of ways, when they talk about who built this country, the
Hmm.
reality of it is without what we brought from Africa, with what the Native Americans taught them, the country probably would not have lasted.
Well, you know what my dad used to say? And he told me this. He said, baby, I won't get to hear a lot of it. He said, but you're gonna find out that all the things that white people got credit for, they came from Africa. He said, and he made a good point. He said, listen, why would you need to invent a plow or a tractor? You ain't doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just like, why would you want to invent an iron? You weren't ironing the clothes. He was just talking about there was no need for white people to invent anything because the black people were doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you still raped our women, although they try to say like it was romance and love. And I told him, what is the syndrome called? Not what is it called, Tiffany? When you fall in, you do feel like you're in love with the
Yeah,
captor.
yeah.
I can't think of the name of it right now. That's possible because that's all you know.
Well, and
I
some of those relationships were probably very complicated,
Yeah.
right? But again, I go back to the fact they were rooted in slavery. They were rooted in bondage. You know, so
Yeah.
at their very core, they were still wrong. You
Evil.
know,
It's not like you walked up and said,
and I
okay,
think
I want to be your mistress. Like,
right when you look at Sally Hemings and Thomas Jefferson, right? I think that's one of the relationships that get real complicated and convoluted because
like a
he had
Harlem
all of
World
those.
romance.
Right. And I was reading some stuff up on him, and he freed, well, he allowed either one or two of his kids to run away, and they changed their names, but he wouldn't free them. He didn't
Yeah.
go looking for him, but he wouldn't free him. And there's also, they talked about his best friend who he grew up with, who was black. And when he gave him, he was like, okay, I'm going to free you. He got mad because he left. He expected him to stay,
Stay.
and he was like, we're friends. And, he's like, yeah, we friends, but I'm free now. So those are very complicated, convoluted
Yeah. I'm
relationships,
ready to go. Thank you,
but
sir.
they're rooted in a very evil practice.
Yes. You know what I think about? I think about the case of sexual assault.
Uh-huh.
And if that's been going on a long time, especially I'm gonna use incest or something like that. If you start that early enough with a child, they grow up thinking, okay, this is okay. This okay. It's not usually until they get away from that situation when they realize how wrong it was. But even in that, they still have some type of
What let
attachment
me
and
let me tell you that
affection.
you can talk about, you don't even have to go that far. You can just talk about, parents who abuse and neglect their kids.
Yeah,
No matter how much abuse or neglect they experience, they still love their parents. And that's
parents.
why I say, those kind of relationships are very complicated.
Yeah, I mean, domestic
Very
violence
complicated.
is a good one.
Right. Right.
Why do you keep going to back to someone that keeps
There's
beating
something,
you?
right.
Yeah, it's something
But
there. So that's the thing about it. But like I said, I was telling y'all about this book, White Rage, and it's not what you think. It's actually, what we're seeing in Project 2025. And that I dropped all this in here. You need to go read it. There's an Agenda 47, which when Tiff posted that, I was like, good Lord. Agenda 47, which I put
Blueprint
a
2024.
comparison. Someone has gone out and compared it to Project 2025 and 47 Agenda 47 to say this is what Project 2025 says, and this is what Agenda 47 says. So you've been armed with some information. It's up to you to go out there and read it. I dropped some videos in here for you to watch, and there are plenty more. But let me tell y'all this: with anything that I listen to, I'm not a
I got
bandwagoner.
something to
Okay.
say for you. You let them leave now.
Oh no, we ain't finna go
Okay.
yet. I just want to tell them I'm not a bandwagon. You all, when you read anything, I don't care if it's your pastor telling you. I'm a Berean, like in the Bible. They heard Paul and they said, Paul, we heard what you said. Now we're going to go study the scripture for ourselves. So you all look at some of this stuff because on both sides, black, white, or other, Asian, or whatever, if somebody's really pushing their agenda and they don't have a balanced mind, they're gonna skew it, to make you believe what they believe. And being a believer, I say you pray about everything. And for me, if it doesn't line up with the word, y'all, whether I like it or not, that's the thing that set us apart as Christians. That we got to say, you know what, Lord, I know you said don't repay evil for evil, so I'm gonna have to let this slide. Now, it does not mean you don't speak out against it. Now, don't get confused, because some of y'all so super Christian, people beating you upside the head, and you won't even move out the way. You just think you
Right.
got to take it with everything. So go to say what you was gonna say, Tip.
No, I was just going to say, as we share information and even comment on information, make sure that we are sharing information that is factual. Because
Yeah.
remember, sharing false information will also feed the algorithm. So I tell people, even if when you see something that you know is wrong and you want to share it so you can comment about it being wrong, don't do that because it's going to feed the algorithm. Also, in Val, I just want to run down a couple of things that I have found in
Okay.
Project 2025. One, it wants to go back to enforcing the death penalty, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we know who that's going to impact
Yes.
because the majority of those on death row are black.
Yeah.
Who gets the death penalty, or whose death sentences or death penalty is recommended for, hinges on the victim. So if the victim is white, the killer is more likely to face the death penalty than if the victim is black. So that's critical because that deals with the racial disparities that they don't want us to talk about. The litigation decisions in the DOJ will talk about leaving those decisions up. No, litigation's decisions should be consistent with the president's agenda. That's code word for weaponizing the
Mm-hmm.
office, right? Because if the DOJ is seeking justice, what difference does it make what the president's agenda is? Um, Voting. It's a lot in the DOJ about absentee ballots, about voting
Mm-hmm.
issues, about equity. DEI is also in there, and getting rid of any DEI hires. Prohibits Planned Parenthood from receiving federal funding. And we all know they say Planned Parenthood is um, only does abortion. That's what they want you to think. But there are places where Planned Parenthood is the only access to reproductive health outside of abortions that women have, right? It eliminates the Department of Education, eliminates Head Start, which I take huge issue with,
Mm-hmm.
weakens the regulations regarding the production of baby formula. Why would you not want to ensure that baby formula is top, produced in a manner that's safe for your babies? There are a number of websites out there. There's one I found that deals with Gen Z stuff. So check it
Uh-huh.
out for those who have um, younger people. But one of the things, some of the stuff on climate change is it rescinds all climate policies, ceases the collaborating with and funding progressive foundations, corporations, international institutions, and NGOs that advocate on behalf of climate action. And if we don't understand that climate change is real, y'all ain't been outside. Because
Tell me about it.
I don't ever think it's been this hot at
My
all.
friend lives in Portugal, 96 degrees. She's been over there 5 years. She said they over there in shock. They
Right.
almost don't know what to do because generally over there they don't have air conditioning in most of the homes.
Right. And you'll also know in some of the marriage and family sections, it talks specifically about a working father and a mother. It doesn't say
Mm-hmm.
anything about working father and working mother, right? So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we also have to read what's not there to
Gotcha.
understand what they're talking about. And for those who didn't see it today, JD Vance said that people who don't have children, their vote shouldn't count as much as people who have children. That's the most asinine thing I have ever heard.
Girl, I just
Um,
thought about, I said he's a male version of Sarah Palin when I heard him
yeah.
talking.
So yeah, we gotta stay vigilant. Um, Find good sources to help you kind of navigate through this information. Share the information with people, young people, and encourage them to go and vote. because again, it's the policies that impact us. And so we need to be concerned heavily about a lot of these policies, because they're definitely going to be detrimental to people who, look like us.
For real. And y'all, I'm gonna be honest with you all. The past few, I guess, say since 2016, even before then, I really struggled with. I know, and for all y'all go loco, everybody thought they lost their life for voting, and I clearly know that. But we got to shift what we're doing relating to voting. We're just going voting, re-electing the same people. We have got to be strategic. And first of all, who we endorse and support. I don't care if you grew up with them. If they prove to be nothing, you need to keep labeling them as nothing. And you all, the last time I went to vote, it was so dark and heavy. I was like, I had a situational depression set going in, because all we say is the powers in the vote. Yeah, we only have power in the vote based on who you elect. And that's what we need to be mindful of.
And
I'm just really being prayerful that when I go this time, I don't break down, start crying.
but you know what? And that is one of the things you have to give it to the Republican Party. Their messaging is always on point, and
Yeah,
it resonates. And I know this morning I was listening to the news, and they were talking about how the use of the word freedom seems to
yeah,
resonate more with younger voters over democracy. So it definitely matters what you say and the language that you're using.
using.
And we definitely got to begin to hold our elected officials accountable too. We like to show up every 4 years and vote, but we have to engage throughout the entire process to ensure that whether we voted for them or not, that our voice is being heard. And that we're still advocating for those things that benefit people who look like us. And I got to shout out Jamila and Nika. I see y'all. Thank y'all for coming. Those are
Yeah,
some of
you
my
typed
friends
it.
too. I
You typed
told
it
you
in the
I
private
I
chat.
told you I shared it a little bit.
Yeah, but look, I just dropped that Gen Z guide in the chat
Oh
to you
yeah.
all. So listen, y'all need to save this interview so you can go back and get all of these resources. Because if you go to the polls ignorant, shame on you.
Right.
Shame on you. And let me say another thing about voting. Y'all, when they have all of these, what is the thing they put on the ballot for us to vote on, Tiffany, called
Constitutional amendments
amendments and
and
stuff?
ballot
You need to
initiatives.
research that stuff.
Hmm.
And then look, if it's in somebody else county, it ain't your business at the end of the day. You can't tell folks whether they want to raise taxes or not down in South Alabama. I mean, it ain't your business.
Yeah,
And for the
I
most
tell people
part.
you have to be careful about some of those, and I don't know that we pay enough attention to some of those ballot initiatives. And I also say this too: the local races are extremely important. Who
Yes.
you're electing as your judges, as your district attorneys, as your sheriffs, those positions too are just as important as some of the top of the ticket, your mayor and your state folk.
And
Those are
everything.
just as important because they have a huge impact on your day-to-day life, in what things in your community look like.
Yeah.
But definitely be educated on those constitutional amendments and ballot measures. And you know I got a couple of people who call me. Find somebody who you can trust. There are also a number of websites out there, and I have to get them to you. There are a couple that I follow closer to election that do a very good job of breaking down constitutional amendments in regular people language so we can actually understand what it is they're trying to do.
With
And always,
everything.
as you look at those two, I tell people, like Project 2025, look at who the author of some of this stuff is. So because
Yeah.
that'll give you a lot of insight on the backdrop and some of the context as to where some of these things are coming from.
And you all, I dropped in the chat too. We didn't talk about it much. There's the other thing is Alabama Blueprint. Okay, that's where the anti-DEI, but you all, there are many more things in there. Some of the things I highlighted was resist the expansion of gambling, election integrity. Now they want election integrity, but right here, y'all, I'm gonna keep holding this book up. On page 168, Dr. Carol Anderson noted before the 2016 election, 868 polling locations were closed.
But this is the thing. We have the safest, most I mean, our elections process for the most
Yeah,
part are safe. There are probably a few and far between issues, but for the most part, the integrity of our elections have been upheld. And it's unfortunate that people have hijacked the narrative that somehow our
things are
polling
being
places,
stolen.
or there's this widespread voter fraud. And and in Project 2025, if you read some of the introductions to some of the sections, I know on the DOJ, it talks about the language is, I mean, it's like um unfortunately, the department has lost its way in recent years and has forfeited the trust of large segments of the American people. And I'm like, did they forfeit the trust, or did a narrative erode away at the
Yeah.
trust? There was, large swaths of departments have been captured by an unaccountable bureaucratic managerial class and radical left ideologues who have embedded themselves throughout its offices and components. I mean, so and the killing party is within the DOJ section. They want these presidential appointees to be appointed to the various departments so that they can watch what's going on and report back. So who in fact is trying to embed somebody
Control.
into the
Yeah.
DOJ?
Because
So
of those 868 polling places, where do you think they were closed, you all?
in our communities, I'm sure.
Yeah, where people don't have, some of them don't have transportation, or if they have public transportation, it's so dismal that they can't even get there. And then they got on here, listen to this language, y'all. Listen. Now they want to talk about divisive, resist Medicaid expansion,
Mm-hmm.
something designed for the working poor and lower socioeconomic people, but you want to resist that. And then
Mm-hmm.
Tiffany talked about educational freedom. Now, this one right here, and I'm looking at the topics, you all. ABC board privatization. Guess what you think that's about? The same reason they privatized prison. We ain't gonna be a generational wealth off of it. That's gonna be somebody's crooning and friend. That's gonna, if you make the
That's gonna
ABC
be that.
board
Mm-hmm.
private. Then the one say remove barriers to minor work authorization. I said I got to go look that one up to see exactly what they mean. And then they have prohibit sexually explicit performance in public.
In public.
That's gonna be
That's
that's
how.
gonna be everybody. Half the bands performing everything. That's gonna be, oh, that's
But
gonna
what
be
is
white and
that?
everything. Yeah,
But I
I'm
mean,
gonna
what is
read
that?
that.
What exactly is that, and what does it look like?
Yeah.
Really?
And then protecting minors from explicit library material. We already know what that's about because Derek, the author Derek, I can't think of his last name right now. He couldn't speak at Hoover because his books was too woke. And if you read the book that he was going to read to the children, it was a book about his son and his hair, an
Mm-hmm.
empowerment book for his black son, who we now know black boys don't get to graduate if they got braids, even though they got them up and they not on their neck. So that type of stuff. And then, of course, we got NDI programs at public higher ed institutions. And then this one, trick master, I gotta read this. Protect babies in utero from
From marijuana.
legalized marijuana.
Marijuana. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was like, okay. And Tiffany, going back, they do have allowed chaplains in public school. Let me tell y'all, you cannot legislate, mandate, chaplainize morality, religion, or anything. Jesus didn't do that. He said, I've set before you life and death. You choose. People have a right to choose what they want to do and not do. And if it end up in a bad end, guess what? They got to deal with the consequences thereof. So all of
Well,
this stuff that we're doing is just unreal.
but some of it too, again, has already been taking place. Like when you talk about the one about protect babies in utero from marijuana
Yeah.
use. If a mother goes to the hospital and tests positive for marijuana, she's already gonna be it. There's a
They
process
calling
already in
DHR
place,
right
and she's
then.
likely gonna be charged with child endangerment. And we aren't even gonna get to the part where there was some litigation up in North Alabama because the doctors were drug testing poor women and black women without them even knowing they were being tested,
Oh, they
and
used
then
to do that
calling
in the
DHR.
ER. That
So,
was common in the ER.
so I'm not even understanding, that's not even something that's necessary. So what's the motivation behind that? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
why do we even need that when there's already laws on the book to handle that?
Yep. I'm gonna put this up here so people can read what Jamila just posted about her son's hair. They tried to say his hair was against the dress code, but I told
Mm-hmm.
them, my girlfriend is on here. His hair is braided now. Her son is a race car driver. Y'all watching Miles Rowe, Mylesrowe. He's an Indy race car driver. When he raced, it was like he had a fro. His hair, if he comes in that big fro, they was like, they need to cut his hair. His mom was like, no. As a
Mm-mm.
matter of fact, his hair give him extra protection and crashing with the
That
helmet
cushion.
in his hair. He's safety. So you trying to make my child be more at risk. So we just gotta realize that all this stuff is messing up. I mean, just crazy what we're going through. And you all
Yeah.
speak out. But let me tell y'all what not to do. Do not get in these arguments and debates with these people. Let me tell you, when people make up their mind about something, you're wasting your time. Try to educate and have conversation with people that really want to know. There are some people I choose to engage. Now, when somebody tell me they're a Christian, I deal with them on the Christianese, right? I did this to a white gentleman that got up in a public forum in Birmingham and gonna read the scripture about why um death penalty was lawful and incarcerating and beating. He went and actually read this. My legs started shaking. When I got back, I made a beeline. I said, excuse me. I said, were you just trying to justify?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Bible says, I said, let's go over here and talk about Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what about when he said, when you've done this to the least of them? I said, when he told you about all the crooked stuff you're doing, when you're doing evil, when you're mistreating people, he turned beet red.
Mm-hmm.
Because y'all, I'm going to call you out. I'm gonna call you out. Just yesterday we learned no UA system or all school systems are having dismantled their
Yeah.
DEI programs, but they made a pledge that they're gonna continue. And you all, let me tell you what you got to be mindful of in these institutions. You better be paying attention
Mm-hmm.
of what's happening, or they will not continue to do what is right. Because if you do what is right, you won't need laws and rules or anything like that, because you would do what's right.
But
So
when you talk about DEI, it's amazing that diversity, which is
yeah,
including all of us,
everyone.
equity, everybody having a fair shake, and inclusion, everybody having a seat at the table, has all of a sudden become a bad thing in a Christian country.
Yes,
Like,
different
I'm like
perspectives.
WWJD now. I don't red, yellow, black, and white. They all
I tell
partners
you
in
what
this
Jesus would
fight,
do is
but
he would clear the temple.
that
He would
that
be
sounds like
turning over
diversity to
tables.
me.
But you
I
know
just I
what?
don't understand it. The
But
the
you
level the level of double speak and blatant
yeah.
hypocrisy is, I mean, it's laughable. Like, I mean, sometimes I listen and I just have to start laughing because I'm like, I know good well you didn't say that with a straight face. Like,
And then expect me
ain't
to
no way in the
believe
world
it.
you said that with a
Expect me
straight
to
face.
believe it. But you know what? The other part, you all, and we're gonna be closing, is that you all, you gotta call this stuff out. And this is something my mama always said to me. She said, Val, you speaking out against something. It may not benefit you. She said, but I guarantee you, when it comes up
Benefit
again,
somebody.
they gonna think about it. And she said, then they gonna have to get a little bit more devious and underhanded to pull it
Gotta
off.
work a little
Y'all, just
harder.
because DEI is gone, we work at these institutions. And sometimes you gotta decide. I'm not gonna work at this institution if they're
Mhm.
going to continuously do things. You pay attention. And a lot of these
Mhm.
institutions still, even with DEI, the C-suite is still very white and male. It's not even white and female.
Mhm.
It's white and male. And so we've got to change it. This country is very diverse, not just in race and color and gender, you all. Our black people don't believe the same
We are
thing.
not a monolith. I tell people that all the time. Like,
Yeah.
especially when I'm in the room and everybody's looking at me. I'm like, look, I do not have a monopoly on what black people think.
Yeah,
You know, I
because our
I
experiences are different.
I think like I think. I can't. I don't speak for all black folks.
Yeah. And one thing I always share with white people, I said, listen, black people do not want white people to go down to zero, to nothing. We just want the same opportunities without obstacles and barriers.
Yeah.
let's say all things equal, I got this credit score, you got this credit score. When I go to the bank to get the loan, if you get 1.5, I should
I
automatically
want
get
1.5 too.
1.5.
That's right.
So
That's
that's
right.
what we want. Don't be having people jump through extra hurdles to hold them back. So Tiffany, we always close, which you can give a word to the people. It can be a soapbox, something that just really get on your nerves, or encouraging word.
I I just want to say, y'all, if we went off script and didn't stay on topic, I apologize because this is my long time friend. We've known each other a long time, and so we don't get to talk like this often. So maybe she'll let me come back.
Oh,
Um,
I already decided that you're gonna be coming back. You're gonna be coming back because we got to continue to educate
right,
on
yeah,
this.
absolutely. But what I want to say to you all is educate yourself,
Yeah,
educate your family, take somebody to the polls to vote with you, and by all means, protect your peace because I think we're in for a very bumpy ride. The next 103 days or so, and probably beyond that. You know, no matter what happens, I think we in for some rocky times. So stay prayed up and protect your peace at all costs.
yeah.
Unplug, watch some Netflix and some nothing TV. I call it nothing TV. You know, you can just watch it and everything is, and by the hour that the show is over, everybody's happy and is in love again. So, you know, protect your peace. And
Yeah.
thank you, Val, for having me on.
Oh, I enjoy, and I'm gonna add this, you all. Everybody may not be supporting Kamala, and that's your right. I got some issues too, but let me say this: speak to truthful it truthful things, and don't go out here bashing her name just because. Okay?
And we can't be one issue voters either.
Yeah,
Okay. I tell people all the time there is no perfect candidate, there is no perfect person. So make sure that however you decide who you're going to vote for, that it's not simply because she was locking everybody up in California, right? Val, that's a whole different conversation because there is a place for Black prosecutors and we
yeah,
need Black prosecutors and we can't bash Black prosecutors for doing their job, right? We got to
yeah,
support them when they do their job because that's what they're there for. But I can promise you, Black prosecutors bring a voice to that room and that space that we need, right?
for
Because they can
sure.
identify with us. So just be sure that however you decide to vote, that don't allow it to come down to one issue. I have some friends and relatives who vote Republican only because they're pro-life. And I'm like, no, that is not how this that is not how we
Well,
get
be
quality
pro-life
candidates.
after they get here. And I'm not talking about us having to
Right.
take care
Well,
of
see, and
people
that's what
keep
I'm
having babies.
saying.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what I'm saying. You know, they're pro-life, they're really anti-abortion, right? But every other policy that their candidate supports, who's supposed to be pro-life, hinders the quality of life of the
Yeah.
born.
You're
And
pro-death because
so
you want me illiterate. You want
right.
me.
And so that's what I mean about being a one issue voter. You know, you're saying you're voting for this person because they're pro life, but in every single, you know, they oppose abortion, but every other policy they support hinders the quality of life. So
Yeah.
clearly they can't be pro-life. And so make sure that you know that we aren't turning into one issue voters or that we aren't giving VP Harris a chance because she was a prosecutor or because she, you know, locked folk up or whatever the case may be. And also be very mindful about sharing the narrative that she slept her way to the top, right? That does a disservice to her and all women, that this idea that the only way we can be successful is by sleeping with other men, right?
Yeah.
Because clearly she's qualified, she's educated, she's been elected to multiple offices, she graduated from Howard University, she got a law degree. I mean, you know, she is bad in her own right. So whether you like her or not, whether you support her or not, let's not perpetuate a narrative that not only does her harm, but does your mama harm, your sister harm, your
Yeah. Your
daughter
daughter.
harm, your auntie harm. You know what I'm saying? Let's not perpetuate those narratives that harm all women for a like on social media.
And also pray for her safety to you all.
Absolutely.
Be definitely. And like I'm gonna say this: those conversations, we can have the conversations in the house, and I'm not talking about not speaking to if someone actually does something
Absolutely.
wrong. That's fine, but don't just come out here with these scathing put downs. Because, like I said, if y'all didn't learn nothing in 2016, you better learn how to band together on the right issues so that you
That's
can
right.
get what you need and get your candidate in there. And then if they don't do right, we'll kick them out. We'll take them to the woodshed.
Cause
That's what we need to start doing.
cause we closer to rolling back. I keep telling folks democracy is at a crossroads.
Look at Look, Jamila said she wish she could hear him speak. Fly on the wall, girl.
Listen, you ain't got to wish. You already know what they saying. You saw what the Speaker of the House had to issue a memo to tell the people not to speak out, not to make any disparaging comments about her based on race or gender.
Yeah, I heard that, and also her ethnicity.
Right.
Yeah,
That's right.
they were really talking about her ethnicity. And look, at the end of the day, y'all, all of us over here in America that are black, we mixed.
That part.
We
That
mixed,
part.
okay? We mixed.
That
So
part.
look, Tiffany, I enjoy it. Like I said, you coming back, you have to educate the people as we go along, especially when we get into our state elections and those type things, and let people know how important those are. I enjoyed you, had
I
a
enjoyed you
wonderful
too. It's so good to
time.
see you.
Yeah, so y'all have a good night. Tiff, you hold on.
Good night, everybody. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.